Should we expect nukes before a world government is formalized? Developments in Ukraine and the Ukraine war, the conflict suggests we are on the verge of entering a no-rules war between Russia and US-led NATO forces. The rules of conventional warfare will be suspended if we pass a point of no return, which is now fast approaching. The complex military aid package approved this week by the Biden administration, Germany, Britain, Canada, Italy, France, and other NATO powers, plus contributions from non-NATO states, will go beyond the transfer of the main battle tanks, although this alone will mark a qualitative turn in the war. The dates in this context matter, not only for the delivery of missiles, tanks, and ammunition to Ukraine, but also for Russia and Ukraine's preparations for decisive attacks in the next 2 months. March is said to be a pivotal month for the offensive strategies of Russia, Ukraine, and NATO. A hot war could then replace the Cold War because of the fundamental difference between the war in Ukraine and the NATO war in Russia. The issue now goes beyond winning a round or a battle. It will be a war of survival between Russia and NATO, and not just a win or lose war between Russia and Ukraine. Whose attack will succeed then, in March? This is the heart of the struggle amid the failure of international initiatives for a political solution. As we know, there are no peace talks, and the de facto collapse of international mechanisms that are supposed to prevent such dangerous escalations. The UN and its agencies are for all intents and purposes ineffective and powerless to act. Even at the level of rhetoric, the UN has failed the test of conscious and political influence. Military experts familiar with Russian and Western strategies in Ukraine expect the fighting to escalate relentlessly starting in February this month. As the timetable for the delivery of Western tanks and military aid to Ukraine approaches, there is an increased possibility that the war between Russia and Ukraine will become an outright war between Russia and NATO. There are many possible triggers for such a scary scenario, including Poland, and Poland plays a critical role as a necessary gateway for the delivery of advanced weapons from NATO to Ukraine. If Russia strikes Poland, it would effectively risk triggering a new world war. According to Article 5 of its constitution, NATO is legally bound to respond to any attack against a NATO member state. Well, it didn't do that when Turkey invaded Cyprus, both NATO members, in 1974. Now, going back to this, Estonia is another example of how the limitation of Russia's military capabilities is being extended. Estonia recently announced that it is considering establishing a continuous zone regime in the Gulf of Finland, allowing it to close the waterway to Russia and isolate St. Petersburg. Estonia is a member of NATO, and Finland is in the process of joining the alliance. With the help of other NATO states, the two countries will then be able to blockade the port of St. Petersburg, the largest in Russia and the Baltic Sea. Russia expelled Estonia's envoy this week to protest the actions of the Estonian government. Once part of the Soviet Union, Estonia recently announced a €130 million military aid package to Ukraine, the largest in its history and equivalent to 1% of its GDP. The West seems unconvinced by Russian President Vladimir Putin's threats of nuclear weapons, since it would lead to the destruction of Russia before the destruction of Western powers. Russia's strategic missiles will take 40 minutes to reach the US, according to a nuclear expert, while US counterparts could hit Russia within 15 minutes. So the West seems to be betting on Mr. Putin's fear of becoming the cause of Russia's destruction. Further, the West also seems to be betting that the Russian military understands that the price Russia would pay in the event of a nuclear war would be many times what the West would suffer, and so it will blink first. One of the problems here, however, is that the Russian military and Mr. Putin are convinced that Russia can win a nuclear war with NATO, and in line with their belief that Russia can win the war in Ukraine. In other words, the political and military compass of NATO and Russia's forces appear to be broken, along with their instruments of self-restraint. And the progressive military escalation appears to be out of control, as we can see, and unlimited, without international mechanisms to rein things in. And this is from Crime Study, and I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.